Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca, otherwise known as Hypnot Hooray Online, and today I wanted to share my 2024 knitting wrapped. So I filmed a similar concept last year and it was really fun. It's kind of like a Spotify Wrapped where I chat about all of the highlights of my making this year, and I really wanted to have a dedicated video where I chat about my favorites because I'm going to be filming my Everything I Knit in 2024 video, but that one is going to be quite fast paced, and I feel like because of that I won't be able to give the praise or the credit to things that I loved using, things that brought me so much joy. So I just wanted this dedicated video where I'm going to be chatting about my favorite garments, accessories, projects, designers, tools, and notions, and things that I really love and recommend. So we can just get started maybe with the first category, which is my favorite garments that I made this year. So I have two right here. The first one is the Blouse No. 1 Light, which is a pattern by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I knit this garment in the spring of this year. I think I finished it in April, and the Blouse No. 1 Light is a top-down saddle shoulder construction, and the pattern calls for 2 strands of mohair knit on 6mm needles, but I really wanted a sheer statement top, so I knit this with 1 strand of mohair. I really wanted to knit the Aura top by Rose Knitwear. That was my initial inspiration, but that one is knit bottom up and seamed, which were 2 things that I didn't want to do, so I just used the Blouse No. 1 Light as my base. This is definitely not an everyday wear piece. It's more of a statement going out top. I have a orange bikini top that I bought specifically to wear underneath this blouse. It's a matching orange color, and then I wear it either with jeans or a black skirt, and it's definitely a statement when I wear it out. I get a lot of questions and compliments when I wear it, I think because it's just very unique, the fluff from the mohair, but then you can really see the individual stitches when I knit this with only 1 strand of mohair, so it's a really cool statement. And yeah, a lot of people are always really surprised when I tell them that I knit it, and they all love it, so it's kind of nice to wear it, a nice confidence boost to always get praise for your knitting. But I am just really happy with this blouse, and it's just a really fun piece. My second favorite garment that I knit this year is my honey vest. I don't know if people are surprised, but I had to mention this vest as part of this video because of the trial and error that I went through for this vest. This is a pattern by Wool & Beyond, and it is a top-down 2-color honeycomb brioche vest, and this garment I started in April and I finished it in September, and I just had to go through many periods of frogging, ripping back, trying something new, frogging that and trying again, mainly because I couldn't meet gauge for this vest. I had to size up to 3.5mm needles, I believe, but I didn't want to size up even more than that because I didn't want the 2-color honeycomb brioche to be too large. I wanted a tighter gauge for that. But then that meant I had to do a lot of modifications. So this is one of my favorite garments that I made this year, partly because I'm just so proud that I actually finished it, and also it's just a really fun, unique piece. I don't think there's anything like this out there in the knitting pattern world, and someone actually commented in my most recent video that Cezanne came out with a very similar looking vest to the My Honey vest. It's almost like a combination of the Lonely Leftovers vest and the My Honey vest, so if you like that vest but you want to knit your own and make it very unique and personalized to you, I'd recommend these 2 patterns. The My Honey vest wasn't the easiest pattern to follow, I would say. I didn't personally like the writing style that much, and I had to do a lot of my own modifications to this vest to get it to fit the way that I wanted, but it's not an impossible pattern to follow, and it was a great base for me. I wouldn't have been able to figure out this vest without that pattern, so yeah, not a terrible pattern, but also not my favorite. Really happy with the piece though. So those were my favorite garments that I made this year. But in terms of my most worn garments, these are two pieces that I didn't knit this year, but I just reached for them a ton. They are my wardrobe staples at this point. So the first one is the April cardigan by Petite Knit. This cardigan I knit at the end of 2023, so I've had it for about a year now, and I don't have any data to back this up, but when I was looking in my closet for knit pieces that I've worn the most this year, this one definitely came out on top. I think the reason why I wear this piece so much is because it is a pretty fitted cardigan, so it's very easy to dress up or down. I'm able to wear it casually, but then also still wear it to work, which I really appreciate. And I was able to wear it year round, which kind of surprised me because I knit this with a strand of mohair, knitting for all of soft silk mohair. So I kind of thought that maybe it'd be a bit too warm, but because it's an open front cardigan, I think that I was actually able to still wear it comfortably because it was still quite breathable and comfortable to wear. So I really, really enjoyed the April cardigan. I think this cardigan is also showing me that I do really like the saddle shoulder construction. This April cardigan has a pretty narrow saddle shoulder at the top here, and it just creates a really nice comfortable fit. It's a really cool process knit as well, so I think that I will be knitting some more saddle shoulder constructions in the future to test out how I like them, but this is just a absolute win for me. I wear this a ton. And then my most worn summer knit, I would say, is none other than my pie camisole. This I knit in 2022 as part of the test knit for Nabita of Creadia Studio. And this pie camisole I knit with Knitting for Olive Merino in the shade Licorice, and it's knit at a very fine gauge. I mentioned this in an earlier video, my summer knit faves, I think I called it, but this top I just reach for a ton in the summer. I think because it's black, it's just that classic neutral that I can pair with anything, but also because it's knit with one strand of fingering weight yarn on 2mm needles, it's just such a nice fine finish fabric. The yarn has held up really well over the past 2 years. It doesn't really pill. It's very comfortable to wear even in the summer when it's quite hot outside. So this is just a little time consuming to knit, but it's just such a basic timeless piece that I just reach for again and again, and it has a really nice unique neckline. It's kind of like a halter top, a wider halter top, so it just has such a nice fit as well. I have zero complaints about this pattern. It's written very well, and it just creates a really nice fitting piece. It's very interesting when I look at these 4 pieces because my 2 favorite knits from this year were 2 statement pieces, but then my most worn knits were these really basic closet staples, just classic stockinette. So we'll see if these make a reappearance in my 2025 knitting wraps because they are more statement pieces. I'm probably not going to reach for them a ton, but they were really fun process knits. But I enjoy all of these garments and I'm really happy to have them in my hand knit wardrobe. So those were the garments, and then moving on to accessories. This was definitely the year of trinkets and ornaments for me. I knit a ton of ornaments. I didn't do that well at inventorying them when I was making them, but I think I probably made close to 100 ornaments this year for all of my markets. And I wanted to share a few of my favorites here and ones that I absolutely loved making. The first one that I probably knit the most was the Christmas Toadstool by Merrin Curley. This is just a really fun pattern to knit up. It's knit relatively quickly on 3.5mm needles, and it's just a really fun way to experiment with variegated yarn. I think it looks really cool in a little toadstool, and I think everyone loves mushrooms. I think it's a really fun home decor piece. It's very cute. And this one I knit with Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo, so some really nice fun variegated yarn. This one I knit with the leftovers of my April cardigan, and then I sewed on some seed beads into like a cluster format, so that's really fun but kind of subtle. So I had a lot of fun knitting these, and they're really fun to even have year round. I'm thinking of knitting a few more and then stringing them on some sort of garland. So these were really fun. The next ones that I really liked knitting were all of these that I sewed more beads onto. So This one here is a little self-drafted stocking, and I sewed on some of these tube beads to kind of make it look like a cookie. And then I have another one here. This is also self-drafted, and this one is a little Pop-Tart here, and I sewed on the tube beads onto some white felt. This one was super fun as well. Everyone loves seeing the Pop-Tart. And then the last two that I really liked making were these self-drafted hats. So I have a free pattern on my Instagram page and also on my Ravelry. I made a few variations until I was happy with the shape of the hat, but this one is my 1 pom-pom version and this is my 2 pom-pom version. And I'm just really happy with these hats. I think they're really fun. They're pretty quick to make. I also found that I was able to use my hand-dyed yarn for these hats in these pom-poms, and that's what I noticed with the rest of these ornaments that I made, is that I really like using fun hand-dyed yarn that's heavily speckled or quite variegated in these small little accessories or trinkets. I find that when I do buy hand-dyed yarn, which is not very often, but when I do, I want it to be quite special, very colorful, variegated or highly speckled yarn, because I do like the tonals, I do like how they look, but to me, it just kind of creates such a similar effect to a commercially dyed yarn. I can't justify the cost. So when I do get hand-dyed yarn, it's usually very bright and very colorful, and I don't really like that in a garment. So it's really fun that with these little fun little ornament or trinkets, I can use that hand-dyed yarn and really stretch it. It goes a really long way. I can make many, many pom-poms with a 400-meter skein of hand-dyed yarn. And it's just really fun. It's a really cool effect, and I'm really happy with them. Another accessory that I knit with hand-dyed yarn that is quickly becoming my most frequently used accessory because it's on my keys is this little tiny key sweater. This is the Cozy Keys pattern by Amy Whittingham, and it's just super fun. I absolutely love how it looks. It's knit on 2.5mm needles, 1 strand of fingering weight yarn, and you knit these tiny little sleeves and then this cute 2x2 rib hem for the body of the key sweater, and it's just really fun. I knit a few other ones. I knit a pink one here and then a purple one. So again, a really nice way for me to experiment and use up my hand-dyed yarn and really stretch it, because you do not need a lot of yarn to make these tiny little sweaters. This little key here just brings me so much joy. It's totally unnecessary, but it's just really fun, and I absolutely love seeing it on my keys every day. Moving on to my favorite and top designers this year. My top designer was none other than Petite Knit. Same as last year, I knit 4 designs from Petite Knit this year, and I will just quickly touch on Petite Knit as my favorite designer because she is probably many knitters' favorite designer, and I may sound like a broken record, but with Petite Knit, I just know that I'm gonna get a garment that I'm going to wear. In terms of the fit, it always turns out the way that it's supposed to. I never have any issues with sizing normally, with the fit, with the silhouette. I have never experienced any major errors in the patterns as well, and I just think that they're written very nicely, and she just has such a vast pattern library from baby, child, woman, man, that I know I'm going to find a pattern that I will want to knit. I will say though that I haven't really fallen in love with any of her recent designs. They haven't really been hitting for me. I used to follow Petite Knit's design process, and then as soon as she would release the design, I would buy the pattern and then cast it on, and that hasn't really happened this year. The only one that I immediately fell in love with was the Dagmar zip-up jacket, but even now I still haven't bought the pattern and cast it on yet, so I don't really know what it is, but she will continue to be a designer that I will knit from, but I just haven't fallen as much in love with her designs as I used to. But nonetheless, she is my top designer this year. Another one is Creadia Studio. So this year I knit 2 patterns from Nabita of Creadia Studio, and they were repeat patterns. I was knitting the pattern for a second time. I knit the pie camisole again, and then I knit the Sharpay beanie a second time as well. And that doesn't happen very often for me. I usually just knit a pattern once and then I just want to move on to the next design. I find that I don't really knit the same pattern over and over again, but there's just something about Nabita's designs that are just so classic. I think that she does really unique silhouettes, like the Sharpay beanie has that really cool plisé stitch. She also has the basset hat, which I think is super unique. I haven't really seen a lot of designers come out with something similar to that. And I just think that she does camisoles well. I think they're some of the best in the game. The pie camisole or the May camisole are just such great fitting camisole garments. So I'd highly recommend checking her out if you haven't before. She hasn't come out with any new designs lately, and she doesn't have the largest pattern library. I would say probably under 15 designs, but I absolutely love all the pieces that I've knit from her. I've knit repeats of her patterns, and I think she just writes patterns really clearly as well, so they're always really easy to follow. One new designer that I knit from this year that I really wanted to highlight and that I really enjoyed knitting from is Atelier Castin. I knit the cognac sweater. I was part of the test knit group for this sweater here earlier on this year, and I absolutely love this sweater. I would have put it in my favorite garments that I knit this year category, but I figured because I was going to be talking about Merrin, the designer, in this category here, I'll just save all of my praise for this sweater now. This sweater is knit with fingering weight and mohair on 6mm needles. So it has a looser gauge. It has really nice drape, and it's very breathable, very airy, but it's not sheer, I would say. And I just absolutely love this sweater design. I think that the cognac sweater and the cognac cardigan are such hidden gems in the knitting pattern world, or I maybe shouldn't say hidden gems because that's maybe not giving Merrin enough credit that she deserves, but these are just great patterns if you want to really use a special hand-dyed yarn, or you don't have a lot of yarn for a sweater's quantity. You don't think that there's going to be enough. I knit the size 3 with 700 meters of each yarn, so 1400 meters total, which I thought was absolutely fantastic to get a whole garment like this out of 700 meters because you're knitting on 6mm needles. It also has a really nice fit. I think Merrin has done a really great job at designing a very well-fitting sweater. It features a contiguous set-in sleeve here, which is a really fun process knit. It's very seamless, and you get a really nice fitting shoulder. There's also short rows here along the neckline to give a really rounded, nice shape to the neckline as opposed to increases. And there's some nice decreases in the sleeve. Again, like I said, the contiguous set-in sleeve has a really nice fit. So I just absolutely love the sweater. I'm thinking of knitting the cardigan next year as well. But Merrin is just a new designer to me that I absolutely loved, and I wanted to give some praise to this year because I wear my cognac sweater a ton, and it's a really great pattern, again, if you don't have a lot of yarn to knit a sweater. And moving on to my favorite yarn that I worked with, I wanted to start off with some continued favorites. So yarns that weren't exactly new to me, but I really enjoyed knitting with them, and they continue to be my favorites this year. So the first is Knit Picks Aloft. This is one of my favorite mohairs that I worked with. I use this for my Blouse No. 1 Light, for my wave sweater, for my Jenny Jacket V-neck. This is the yarn for my Jenny Jacket V-neck, and I just absolutely love this mohair. I think in the summertime, either in the spring or the summer, Knit Picks released more shades and discontinued some as well. So for example, the shade that I knit my Blouse No. 1 with Koi is not available, but there's more shades that you can choose from. I haven't tried the Aloft since then, so I'm hoping that they did not change anything about it and it still feels like this because it's a very nice mohair. I would say that this is a more affordable alternative to the Isire silk mohair. It has the same degree or level of fluff to it as the Isire. It's a really nice fluff, and I also really appreciate that the silk core and the mohair are usually the same shade. I've knit with some mohairs in the past, like Drops Kid Silk, where the silk core doesn't, I guess, take the dye the same way that the mohair does, and so when you knit it up in a fabric, you can really see the silk. It's almost like a white strand throughout, and I don't really like how that looks. But of all the Aloft mohairs that I have gotten, I almost don't even notice the silk core, and I think it looks really nice in a finished garment. I have two actually behind me. So maybe I can show them here. These are just 3 shades of the Aloft that I have right now, and you can see that the core just blends in really well with the mohair. I really appreciate that in a mohair, and I feel like sometimes it can be hard to find, especially at this price point as well. You can get Aloft for under 10 Canadian dollars when it goes on sale, so I think it's a great price point, and I really like how it feels. 0 itch factor. It's one of my favorites. Another favorite mohair that I used this year is one that I don't have with me because I used all of it, and also it's not as accessible to me in Canada. It's Filcolana Tilia. I really like that mohair because it has a really soft fluff to it as well. I would say it's not as fluffy as the Knit Picks Aloft or the Sire Silk mohair, but it does have a really nice fluff to it. The reason why I really like Aloft is I don't really know what it is about the silk core, but there's just something about it that absolutely shines. I used Filcolana Tilia for my cognac cardigan, and in photos in the sun, this garment just glows. I don't really know what it is. And so if I were to knit a mohair only project in the future, I will definitely look to buying some more Filcolana Tilia because it's just such a great mohair. I just wish it was easier to get here in Canada. Moving on to the wools that I really enjoyed working with, I think my standout 100% wool is Lion Brand Yarn Fisherman's Wool. I used this for a few projects this year. My Marie pillow is a current whip, and I'm using a different shade of this brown, and then this one I'm using for my wave sweater. But I just think that Fisherman's Wool has such a great value for money. You get 425 meters for every ball here. It's not the most easily accessible yarn for me here in Canada. I think that you can get this at Joann's in the US, but I have to order mine online. But you just get such great value for money. I also have a really nice knitting experience with this yarn. I've only really had 1 or 2 knots in a ball, like once in a blue moon, which I think is great for a 425 meter ball of yarn. And I would say that the shade range is pretty limited. It's more like natural sheep wool shades, but I like all of the colors, so that's a non-factor to me. It's just more of a neutral palette. And I just think that this is a great commercial, affordable 100% wool. 2 new to me yarns this year that I absolutely loved working with are these 2 here. They're both fingering weight. So the first one is Onling number 11. This yarn I won in a giveaway, and I knit my second pie camisole with this yarn. It's 90% merino, 10% cashmere, so a really luxurious blend, and it just blooms so beautifully. Once you block the garment, you just get this really beautiful halo, like really subtle halo to the yarn, and it's just feels really luxurious when you're knitting with it. I think that it's actually discontinued, which is very unfortunate, but I'm glad that I was able to work with it while it was still available. And I have enough yarn for another garment, so I'm thinking maybe I will knit this on its own to just really showcase the yarn itself. So I'm thinking either maybe the thin sweater or the Copenhagen cardigan, but I really enjoyed working with this yarn this year. Just kind of unfortunate it's no longer available. One that is still available and one that I'm really surprised about, that I really liked working with, is Knit Picks palette. There were 2 reasons why I wasn't too sure about this yarn before I tried it. First, it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool, so I was a little bit worried it wasn't going to be that soft. And second is it's a 2-ply yarn. I don't normally like 2-ply yarn, mainly because I think in the past I knit a lot of stockinette, and I felt like the 2-ply yarn, the way it's plied, you could really notice the texture of it when it's knit up in stockinette. But I found that I really liked how this is working up in a more textured stitch. I'm using this yarn here for my Jenny Jacket V-neck. I'm holding it with a strand of mohair, and I just love the stitch definition. I think it looks great. I would say that this yarn is great for more winter garments because it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It wouldn't work for a summer garment, at least not for me, and probably not for most people, but I think holding it with a strand of mohair, it's a really great yarn to use for more textured stitches. So these were all of my favorites this year. I realized that apart from the Onling number 11, which was definitely a nice luxury, all of these yarns are relatively affordable, and I think that this year really taught me that I am starting to really like 100% wool or 100% non-treated wool. I found that I used to really like superwash merino, and I still do. It's still a really comfortable fiber to wear, but my superwash garments just continue to grow and grow every time I block them. And so I think I realized that I would prefer an untreated wool. It's a little bit more predictable, I guess, in the finished garment. It's not going to grow a ton. You just have to be careful with it felting. I think I'll still knit with merino and superwash yarn in the future, but this year was a nice year of experimentation and reflection with 100% untreated wool. Honestly, hadn't really worked with it that much before, and realizing that I really like it. So there are some other commercial options that I really want to try out and maybe give my 2 cents in a future podcast, give my thoughts and a little review on them. But yeah, it was a nice year of reflection, and these were my favorite yarns that I like working with. And moving on to tools and notions, there are 3 that I wanted to share that I absolutely loved this year. The first is these Addy Crazy Trios. So this year I had a goal where I wanted to knit socks, and I'm still not convinced that I am going to be a sock knitter, but when I wanted to knit my first pair of socks, or my first pair of fingering weight socks, I realized that I wanted to try out flexible double pointed needles because I absolutely despise working magic loop. I hate it. And also I prefer double pointed needles, but they're not the most portable. You can risk breaking them or snapping them in your bag because they're quite rigid, or they just poke out of your bag. Or you can risk losing one because there's so many of them that you have to carry around. So I thought that I would try out flexible double pointed needles, and I tried out the Addy Crazy Trios, and I do really like them for a small circumference. You do have to have a certain minimum size, I guess, to work them. Like, they wouldn't work that well for tiny circumferences like the sweater keys that I mentioned before. The work still has to be able to bend around the flexible part of the needles in order for this needle to work, but these will work really well for socks and sleeves. I really enjoyed working with them. I think they combine the best qualities of magic loop and double pointed needles, where you are not changing your needle as frequently like on double pointed needles, where you're changing the needle a few times in one round. You're only changing it twice, just like magic loop, but it's not as fiddly as magic loop with the cord because you're not having to adjust a cord and move around the needle so much. So I just think that these were great. I don't really like the Addy tips that much. I find that the work doesn't glide that well across them. So if ChiaoGoo were to come out with a flexible double pointed needle option, I would definitely jump on that for maybe some frequently used garment sizes, like a 3.5 or 4 millimeter needle, just to try those out. But really liked flexible double pointed needles this year. And then the second tool that I absolutely loved this year is a row counting stitch marker. I really like it because it just keeps knitting quite mindless. You don't have to count rows on like a row counter or on like a separate piece of paper. It's right here in front of you. This row counter here I made myself because as a crafty person before knitting, I used to love making jewelry. So I already had all of the tools like the pliers and the jump rings to make my own. And I love that because I can adjust the number of counters, I guess, here based off of my project by taking out loops or adding loops. So I made my own here, but I know that Emma's Knits has some row counter stitch markers available on her Etsy store, and you could probably find it at your local yarn store. It's not a new invention or anything. I just found that I was using my row counter a lot this year because I was knitting more color work and textured stitches. Like my wave sweater, I used a row counter. My sweater number 15 that I attempted earlier on this year, but it's been a languishing whip. My Jenny jacket here, it's just a really nice mindless way for you to count your rows, and I find that it's a really handy notion to have. And then the last tool that I absolutely loved this year was these project bags from the Knitting Swan. You can definitely tell that these project bags were designed by a knitter. This is a large project bag. It has a flat base, so it stands up on its own. There's so many pockets on the inside. There's 6 pockets all the way around, so it's great for multiple smaller projects. Like when I was working on ornaments this year, I would hold all of them in here, and I was able to put the balls of yarn in each of those pockets and still keep everything really organized, but in one bag. It's a really nice size, it's a really nice quality, and Tao, the owner of the Knitting Swan, designs these fabrics herself, and then she gets them printed on this cotton fabric. I will say, full disclosure, that this bag was gifted to me by the Knitting Swan, but I do think that it's a very high quality product. I would buy this bag with my own money. I already have 2 of them, so I don't know if I need a 3rd one, but if I were to buy one of these as a gift to a fellow knitting friend, or if Tao comes out with another print that I absolutely love, I would buy this bag myself. I think that it's a really high quality product and a great small business to support based in the UK. So that was everything. Those were all the tools, and that was everything for my 2024 Knitting Wrapped. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much if you reached this point in the video. I will be filming my Everything I Knit in 2024 video, so that's coming soon, but I did want to give a lot of praise and highlight some of my favorites from this year. I'd love to know down below what your favorites were from this year. Always down to try out new yarns or patterns or designers, so let me know down below, and stay tuned for my Everything I Knit in 2024 video. I'm very excited for that, so until then, happy knitting.